How close are these 7 flagship smartphones in portrait photos to a real Sony camera, which with lenses cost around $5,000? Today I'm putting them to the test, and everything you will see is 100% unbiased because I bought every single phone with my own money. Maria is also helping out as a model for this video, and if you are watching this on Valentine's Day, she says hi. Xiaomi and Huawei use a 1-inch type sensor on the main camera. The rest are very similar, except OnePlus, which is slightly smaller. Since all of them sit around 23 to 25mm, I'm using a 24mm Sony lens to keep the test fair. The first shot was taken outside, and this is the lighting. I took the video with the Sony camera, and all photos from the phones are taken in portrait mode. In the first photo, the Xiaomi 17 Ultra generally creates a good image. It is shot in Leica Authentic, and like always, it is a bit contrasty. Xiaomi is leaning slightly towards magenta when it comes to skin tone. The portrait processing of Maria's hair and background is excellent, and if we zoom on her eyes, the optical quality is good, especially coming from a phone. Then we have the Huawei Pura 80 Ultra, another 1-inch type sensor. The tone of the picture is colder, and we also have the same magenta tone on Maria's skin. The photo is very sharp. If you look at Maria's hair on top, you can count every single strand. The optical quality is also quite nice, and you can see good dynamic range in her eyes. Then we have the iPhone 17 Pro, where Maria's skin tone is warmer and a little closer to the Sony. I should say I'm not a huge fan of the processing of the hair. It seems it's cutting at a certain point in the depth map and blurred it too fast. But overall, I really like the photo. Then we have the OnePlus 15. The photo is vibrant, Maria's skin tone has a bit of magenta, and her red shirt is popping a lot. It also seems to sharpen the hair. At the same time, it has very good processing when it comes to picking the hair one by one and not making the photo look unnatural. Considering it has the smallest sensor among all the phones here, the dynamic range is acceptable when we zoom in into Maria's eye. The Pixel 10 Pro photo has this magenta tint that is very common on Pixel phones. When it comes to processing Maria's hair, it honestly has the worst processing I've seen between the 7 phones. It does a very poor job, and that's strange coming from Google being a pioneer in AI and image processing. The photo has nice details, but it also appears to be on the over-sharpened side. The first thing you notice about the Samsung S25 Ultra phone is the cold color tone. I've been using the S25 Ultra for a year, and I'm still not totally used to this. The other thing is that the hair is cut instead of being blurred gradually on top as the other Chinese phones were doing. If we zoom into Maria's eye, the quality is rather good. Then we have the Vivo X300 Pro, and right off the bat, I love this photo. I like the vibrancy, but I'm also immediately noticed Maria's skin is much softer than on the Sony, and the skin tone is warmer. The hair processing is on point, and it is not cut like we saw on the Pixel or Galaxy. The photo also has a nice dynamic range when we look at the Maria's eyes. But let me know down in the comments how you would rank the phones. I write 7 comments with the name of each phone and like the one that you think did better than the others. Unlike the main sensor, the telephoto one is vastly different between them both in terms of focal length and sensor size. Xiaomi, Huawei and Vivo have the larger sensor sizes, while the rest have smaller ones. The OnePlus, not surprisingly, has the smallest one. Galaxy and Huawei have 2 telephoto lenses, while the others have 1, with Xiaomi have a fancy continuous 75 to 100mm lens. I'm going to use a Sony 85mm lens for this comparison, but the photo is slightly cropped to match the phones. This is Maria in the second photo in this specific lighting. All photos are going to be taken in portrait mode on the phones. The first photo is the Xiaomi 17 Ultra, where it is softer than the Sony. The face is exposed more, making highlights disappear, and there is more of a magenta tone to it. Looking at the hair and the general background blur, the phone did a great job processing it. The second photo is taken by the Huawei Pura 80 Ultra. The difference is that it made Maria's hair unnaturally white by adding a lot of contrast and sharpening. The bokeh is nicely managed and the hair is blurred, but there are some places where it is simply cut. The iPhone 17 Pro colors are similar to the Sony Camera. They are both on the warmer side, even though the iPhone is a bit more vibrant and also more sharpened and more contrasty. Maria's hair on the iPhone is whiter. For bokeh, the iPhone is doing an okay job, but I can also see it is sometimes aggressive in hair processing. If you wonder why the OnePlus 15 picture is only 85mm, it is because in portrait mode, you can't zoom further than that and it is fixed. Therefore, I matched it on the Sony. I like the photo generally, it is a bit more vibrant and on the coldest side, but I can't get behind the bokeh processing. As you can see, it simply cuts Maria's hair when it is inconvenient, and that's not what I expect from an almost flagship phone. The Pixel 10 Pro has a terrible limitation for portrait mode, and that's that you can't take portrait shots with the telephoto lens. This totally ruins the whole purpose of portrait mode, in my humble opinion. This picture is the 3x digital zoom of the main camera, therefore it is over-sharpened, and the optical quality is rather lacking. For the Galaxy S25 Ultra, this time the photo is more vibrant and has magenta tone instead of a cold blue one. The optical quality and background blur works quite well, but if we zoom into Maria's hair, I think it could do a better job. It is aggressively cutting Maria's hair. This one is taken by Vivo X300 Pro, which is again more vibrant in portrait mode with softened skin tones. If we put that aside, the blurring is nice, and it has the best hair processing among all the phones. It blurs hair when necessary instead of cutting it off. For the next shot, I did use the normal mode since we could not see the potential of the telephoto lens for OnePlus and Google due to the zoom limitation. The Xiaomi 17 Ultra has a large telephoto lens, and it is not surprising that the background blur is rather nice. It is not as nice as a dedicated 85mm Sony lens with f1.8. The skin tone is a bit softer, and the red is less deep on Maria's hair and top. Huawei also has a large telephoto sensor, and the background blur is nice. The skin tone on Maria is very pinkish though, in contrast to the Sony, which has a warmer and greener tone. The iPhone 17 Pro simply doesn't have the optical quality of Huawei and Xiaomi. The background blur is also not amazing, simply due to the smaller sensor. OnePlus is punching above its weight. I like the processing, it is vivid, and Maria is popping. The background blur is disappointing. But that's not a surprise considering the sensor size. The Pixel 10 Pro picture is very soft, has a strong magenta tone, and the background blur is also nothing to boast about. I would say I really like the Galaxy processing here. Yes, it is a bit cold, and yes, the background blur is similar to the iPhone and Pixel, but overall it has a natural vibe in its color science here. And of course, Vivo is going to have better background blur, dynamic range, and overall optical quality. It is difficult to beat physics, and none of the phones can, in the end, beat the quality of a Sony Alpha camera. For the last shot, I won't go much into detail, and we will talk about the skin tone processing. Just take this with a grain of salt, because most of these phones have different filters where you can adjust the skin tone. I'm just showing the default color science. Xiaomi in portrait mode tends to expose more and has a bit of a magenta tint. Huawei is also leaning towards magenta, but also has a warm tone. Generally, I rather like the skin tones on Huawei in portrait mode. The iPhone is usually on the warmer side, even when you take the photo in the cold light, like I did here. I took this photo on the OnePlus 15 in normal mode, not portrait, due to its limitation, and the skin tone is also warmer and more vibrant. This is also taken on the Pixel in normal mode, and the magenta tint is all over the picture. It is even spilling onto the wall in the background. The Galaxy is balanced, it is warmer, but it also has raised shadows, which is the characteristic of Galaxy phones we see across generations. Vivo is also very vibrant in portrait mode. This is not the case in normal mode though, as Zeiss Natural usually takes neutral photos. If you want to know what I mean by that, you can see the full camera comparison of Vivo versus Huawei versus iPhone versus Xiaomi next. Thanks for tuning into Tecmo, and I will see you in the next one.